Sorry if any of that
Good
happened
evening, ladies
again,
and
but
gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us for this session of HR Mentorship Learning Series. My name is Oluyemi Adeosun, and tonight we'll be looking at the topic HR as an administrative expert and also strategic partner. Our facilitator for tonight is Blessing Jinodu. Blessing is a seasoned HR professional passionate about creating people-first workplaces. She's a graduate of University of Ibadan. She read biology education. Her journey into HR began immediately after university when she joined AG Dangote Construction as an HR assistant. Through dedication and continuous learning, she progressed to the role of HR generalist role and now serves as the senior HR executive at EFL Logistics, leading initiatives in talent management, training, and organizational development. Chinodu is the author of the Rookie HR, a practicing guide of aspiring HR professionals navigating the realities of the modern workplace. She's a storyteller, digital creator, and so on and so forth. Blessing is a CIPM certified HR expert, and she combines hands-on experience with strategic insight, helping professionals and organizations to thrive. Speaking to us this evening on the topic HR as an administrative expert and strategic partner, please let's welcome Blessing Jinod.
Okay, good. Thank you so much for that introduction, and thank you also for being patient with me. A pleasure being here for the first time. So apologies for all of the hiccups that happened at the beginning of this section. Okay, so Doctor has already introduced me. My name is Gina Blessing, and I will be the one facilitating this section tonight. So please, at any point, if you cannot hear me or if you cannot see my screen, so please just let me know. All right. So we are talking HR as an administrative expert and strategic partner. On LinkedIn. You see that HR professionals already understand what this means and they want to look for a way to at least pass it around, especially to executive and people that are not HR, so that they will know that HR is not just administrative functions, HR is more than administrative functions. So we will be looking at all of this in today's webinar. So first of all, we will be starting the webinar objective. So some of the webinar objective is, sorry. So the webinar objective, by the end of the webinar, participants will be able to clearly differentiate between HR administrative responsibility and strategic partnership role. Because a lot of us just talk about HR administration and strategic HRs, and we don't really know what it means or what the difference are between HR administrative roles and HR strategic roles. Then to diagnose gaps in current HR functions that limit business impact, apply real world HR examples to improve decision making and credibility, and also to position HR as a value adding function with measurable business outcomes. So we will be starting the section with this case study. So this case study, we will be answering it and also be looking at it as we progress in the webinar. Sorry. Sorry, 1 minute. Okay, so to the first case study. So we'll be talking about this financial services company, Mary Fund, my financial services company. So this in this financial servicing company, HR was known as an effective administrative unit. So HR manage payroll, they manage administration, they manage recruitment, anything that has to do with HR administration in this company. HR was very, very effective in this company. But one of the things they faced was that they were not involved into strategic decisions. So I know a lot of us might have experienced this in our different workplaces or at a certain period in our career where we just think that we need to be in strategic meetings. We need a seat at the table, but we don't get involved. We don't get invited to strategic table. And sometimes we look at it that what could be the problem? And some of us just feel like maybe it's because our executive or the leaders in the company, they don't really see HR as a role that should be in strategic meetings or a role that should also, when there are meetings where there are when there are difficulties or challenges in the organization, they don't see HR as a strategic role that could provide them with business outcomes. So by Q2, the company faced rising turnover, failing productivity, customer complaints, and missed revenue targets. Leadership met to respond again without HR. Just like I said, I know some HR colleagues and HR mentors that have been in this situation where they'll say that they don't get invited into strategic meetings. And when things happen, they just tell them what to do. So HR was instructed to tighten policy, increase disciplinary action, and recruit aggressively. They complied effectively, yet the problem worsened. So when this problem happened, they didn't call HR that HR, what do you think? What do you think is the problem? How can we solve this problem? Instead, there was a strategic meeting behind HR's door, and they just make decision and they came with a solution that they thought okay, it was okay. And because of that, they said, oh yeah, HR, we are going to recruit. We're experiencing turnover in this department. Start replacing them. Oh, people are not coming to work anymore. Look at our policies again and tightening them. Meanwhile, the problem did not stop. So if you know that you have experienced something like this, can you please just maybe with an emoji or anything in the chat box? I would like you to respond. So I want this section to be as interactive as possible. So if you know that you have experienced any of this, kindly just notify maybe with an emoji or with anything in the chat box. If you know or you know anybody, any HR that have been in this kind of position. So going to the second case study. So this manufacturing company, the HR team in this manufacturing company, they are eager to be involved in strategic decisions. They want to be part of strategic decisions. They want to advise, they want to serve as a consultant, a business consultant to the company, to the organization, but they were not trusted enough to be handed that kind of responsibility. And that is because they are lacking when it comes to HR administrative tasks. They were not they were payroll errors, there were different kinds of errors, no employee records were incomplete, and a whole lot of other issues. So because of that, when the HR manager or the head of HR asked management that, oh, all of these things that are going on in this company, we can actually provide solution, invite HR to your strategic meetings or your strategic decisions, they refuse because they felt like, come on, the basics that we asked you to do, the little things that you're supposed to do, you can't even do them well. So how will you give us advice? How will you give us advice? So some of your advice or some of your recommendation might actually put the company at a loss. So we cannot do that. So these two case studies have formed the basis for our conversation this evening, being HR as an administrative expert and also HR as a strategic partner. All right. So these are the debates, but we will come to this later. Can HR be blamed for business outcome if leader never invites them into strategy? So I want all of us to look at this together. So can you really say when there are situations that HR don't get invited to strategic discussions or meeting, who is at fault here? Is it the HR department or do you think it's leadership? Then two, should HR be trusted with strategic decision, even if core administrative tasks are weak? So for the second case study, even though they were not doing the HR administrative tasks effectively, do you think management should still have involved them in because of? this webinar. So the evolution of HR. So HR has evolved over time, right from the Industrial Revolution era, where the labor union, where the union thing came up, and from there HR has evolved to what it is today. So human resources has evolved from personnel management to administrative functions to strategic business partner. There was a time someone said something on Twitter that HR, there was a time HR was called personnel management, human capital. Now they are saying people, operations, and all of that. Now, what is HR going to be called again tomorrow? But instead of seeing that as a shade, I just see that as the evolution of HR. HR has gone through different phases and to get to where it is today, from personnel management, where all they just deal with is recruitment and payroll and some documentation, to HR administration, where when it comes to compliance, policies, and every other thing. Then now to HR business partnership, where now HR is more concerned about business outcome, about aligning HR objective of business objective to aligning HR goals and all of that to business objective and bringing in, leading to very good outcomes. So those are the evolution of HR. And in what we are discussing today, we cannot look at all of this without actually look at this evolution of HR. There is this person called Ulrich. Yes, Dave Ulrich. Dave Ulrich came up with 4 models for HR, and the first one was administrative expert. So administrative expert is like being an administrative expert for HR is the basis for HR. It's like the foundation. Professional in a line. Anthony, I appreciate that. Okay, so let's go back to the model by Dave Aldrich. So, like I was saying, Dave Aldrich came up with these 4 HR models. Then the first one is HR administrative expert, followed by strategic partnership, then followed by change agents. He believes that every HR should be a change agent. Then the last one is employee champion. That for an HR to work effectively, HR must be an employee, must be able to speak up for employee, must be able to fight for the right of employees. Yes, but from all of this model, we are taking just 2, which is very, very important and which speaks to what we are talking about today, which is HR being an administrative expert, a strategic now. Okay. So I am saying that for an HR to be effective, no, like you cannot just say you want to be an administrative expert and not go into strategy. And you cannot say you want to be strategic and not be an administrative expert. So being an administrative expert is not the opposite of being a strategic partner. They go hand in hand. It's like a straight line, right? So you are starting from the beginning and you're going. So when it gets to a point that you transition to the other, you cannot say you want to be one and you don't want to be the other one. If you just want to stick with being an administrative expert, then you will get to that position when you have to fight for a seat at the table, where you will be seen as a back end staff. You will not, your recommendations, your advice will not be taken seriously, and you will not be able to influence business outcome. So when you say you want to be a strategic partner and you don't know anything about administration, where do you get your data from? Where do you get your insights from? So this, if you look at my slide, you see there is a scale. Both goes hand in hand. You cannot just be one and not be ordered. For you to be an effective HR, you have to be able to balance both being an administrative expert and also being strategically relevant. So both goes hand in hand. Right. Okay, so let's talk now about HR being an administrative expert. So, for HR to be an administrative expert, it means HR ability to design, run, and continuously improve the people system that keeps the organization functioning smoothly, legally, and effectively. So, this role is very, very important. Like I said, it's like the backbone, it's like the foundation of HR. So, these are the bases that every HR leader today, they were once there and they are expert there. So these are like the basics for HR. It starts from your documentation, your recruitment, your compliance, making sure that the organization is legally compliant, making sure that benefit and administration run smoothly, your employee documentation and records, they are up to date and they are very well, okay. So this is the foundation of HR credibility. If you look at our second case study, the HR department in that second case study, when it comes to administrative experts, they are lacking. So you cannot say you want to be strategic when you've not mastered that administrative expert of HR, because they will not see you as, you will not be credible. People will look down on you. Even management will not take you seriously because, oh, what do you mean you want to give us advice on our expansion into a new market when you are making silly payroll errors, when there are not even some policies are not even up to date, and like that, the company, some of the policies are not in line with the local labor law that you're presently that the company is in, and you're saying you want to prefer strategic decision, or you want to give strategic advice, you will not be taken seriously. So that is why HR administration, this administrative expertise, the foundation, is the basis. Like, those are the least thing. That is where you should start. All right, thank you. Then core administrative responsibility of HR, like I said, recruitment administration, payroll and benefits management, employee records and HRS, onboarding and exit, leave management, compliance and documentation, then policy implementation. These are the core administrative HR responsibility. And you have to be an expert in all of this before you can even call yourself an administrative expert. You cannot move on to being strategic, or you cannot go on to the other level if you have not mastered this, if you're not an expert in all of these core administrative HR responsibilities. So, and these are there are some things that there are some common administrative HR challenges. So a lot of people have not mastered the administrative part of HR because, one, they are used to manual and fragmented processes. So a lot of us, I know that there are still companies in this age, in this 2026, that still believe that technology is a waste of money. I know colleagues that still work in companies like that where everything is manual. And yes, and there are companies, there are HRs that they don't even deal with paper anymore. They have systems that make them all of this administrative part of HR that makes that MSN to automate it and makes it very, this administrative part for long is when you have to do everything manually. And because of that, they are busy. So if you are busy, you're busy with payroll, you're busy with all of this, how do you then start thinking strategically? What you do, your day to day, your 9 to 5 is so busy doing HR administrative tasks. Then what time do you have to sit down to look at your data and to plan strategically? Sometimes these are the challenges of HR. When I started at AG Dangote Construction Company, there was a time I was working on payroll, and at that time, there was a time we actually spent like a week on payroll. So we start payroll a week earlier. And then that was because everything was manual. So then we use time card, right? If you know time card. So employees, since it's a construction company, attendance is very important. Then employees, they fill time card, their line manager signs. Then you now have to now take these time cards and now input it. And I'm talking about 2,000 plus staff. So you now have to take this time card and now input the number of hours into an Excel spreadsheet to prepare payroll. So this person works, sorry. So this person works 8 hours. On your payroll is 8 hours. You punch eight. 1, 8, 2, 9. This person works 4 hours. 4, 1. And because of that, that single task takes a whole lot of time. There are times we close as late as 10 p.m., 11 p.m. before going on, just so that we can meet up payroll deadline. Why? Because everything is manual and they are fragmented processes. Until I think a year after, they still using Excel with VLOOKUP, thankfully, and a biometric machine. Then the process improved a bit. It was still seamless, but in fact, we cut about I don't really know the data, would work about 10 days or 1 week on. Then we started spending 3 days on that task. So sometimes there are lots HRs are so consumed with a lot of manual processes, and that takes a whole lot of their time. And because of that, they cannot even focus on being strategic. All you have to do, you're just working on payroll. Before you finish payroll, another cycle of payroll is starting again. Before you finish one recruitment process, another cycle is starting again. It's just like that, like that, like that. So, what time do you have? All of the data you have, how, what time do you have to even analyze them? Look at trends and monitor them. So you're just so consumed in the administrative part. Then the second one is poor documentation and record keeping, right? Because if you don't have an HRIS or a system that makes your record keeping very, very easy, you still have to like give people forms, paper forms to fill, and you still have to like maybe chase them to fill those forms. And some of these forms, maybe when they bring it to you to come and submit, you don't file them properly. Before you know, maybe the cleaner comes to clean your office, and the person thinks it's a rough sheet and it's discarded, and everything is just so messed up. So those are some of the problems, challenges of in the administrative part. And the sad thing is, a lot of us, a lot of HRs are stuck in this place. Before you know it, you're spending 3, 4 years in a role, and this is just the only thing you're doing. These are just the only thing you're so consumed with. Then reactive and firefighting HR. Yes, so this is also one of the challenges of administrative HR. And also, I'll also still tie it to manual processes and fragmented processes, because you don't even have time to look at your data. You don't even have time to monitor trends. So when there is an issue, that is when you get to see the problem and you react. But if you have enough time in your hands to look at trends, to monitor trends, to look at your data and your ins and into you will be able to forecast and say, oh, if we don't stop this, this is going to happen. If we continue to do this, we are going to have a high number of turnover. People are going to leave. Oh, why is it that we keep recruiting for the operations department? Why in HR or in finance, in accounts, people have not resigned in a long time? Why is it that in operations, every 2 months, every 1 month, we have to replace people? So you don't, but it's when it happens, then you know, say, okay, somebody resign. Oh yeah, let's bring in another person. You don't even have time to look at these trends and monitor them. So all of these points, they are just so interrelated, right? Limited HR systems and automation, the same thing, manual and fragmented, over dependent on individuals and not processes. Right. So next slide. So best practices for administrative excellence. For you to actually attain that administrative excellence, there are things that you need to put in place. There are processes that will help you to attain that. One is standard processes, SOPs, and checklists. So sometimes even if there are no technology, just like the example I cited in my former place of work, at some point We were just doing it. And one day, I and my colleague, we just sat down and we said, no, we cannot continue to do like this. Because later, even when we got a biometric machine, we were still doing that manual input. And I just said that no, there should be an Excel formula that can make this easier for me. And I just went to Google, and I remember, yes, I also remembered there was an Excel training that the company organized around that period, and then I got familiar with VLOOKUP, right? And I just applied that formula, and everything just as if all of the stress was just taken off me. So yes, even when there are no technology, there are ways we can automate processes with basic things that we have. Yes, your company might not have an HRI system, but your company has Microsoft 360. I can tell you that you can do a lot with Microsoft 360. Yes, it might not be perfect, but it will reduce some administrative tasks. It will reduce the number of time you spend on some administrative tasks. So HR systems and basic automation, just with the example that I just cited, then clear documentation and templates. Sometimes we just model things up. We don't even have clear templates. We don't even have clear documentation for things. And these are some of the things that these are some of the challenges for administrative experts, because you keep going round and round the cycle. Then it makes you spend a whole number of hours, number of time, lots of time and lots of productivity. That is what it will result into, because you just keep doing something you should have spent less than 30 minutes on. You're taking 2, 3 days to do it. Yes, then define roles and accountability. So the best thing is for you to be an administrative expert, or for you to be excellent in being an administrative expert, you need to define roles and accountability. Let's say you have an HR department and everybody is just doing anything. Nobody is assigned to do this, nobody is assigned to do this, nobody is assigned to do that. Yes, you can define your roles and responsibility. Okay, even if maybe designations are not changing, role titles are not changing, but this person knows that, okay, this is what I do when it comes to recruitment down to documentation. I handle that. This person knows that when it comes to recruitment, I handle that. This person knows that when it comes to payroll, this is what I handle. So when you define those roles and responsibility, it makes those administrative tasks, it makes them easier, and people can become excellent or experts in those side or in those tasks that they've been assigned to. The use of data and simple HR dashboard. When I started HR, I thought I wouldn't have to I don't have anything to do with numbers. But if you are an HR expert or an HR professional, you cannot just take away numbers from anything you're going to do. So, and some of these data that we have, yes, you do survey, you get results from your survey, you do a whole lot of things, you have your recruitment dashboard and all of that. So this will also help you to make informed decisions, and it will also make your job easier as an HR. Alright. So let's move to HR as a strategic partner. We just talked about HR being an administrative partner. So let me just go back a bit to HR being an administrative partner. We've talked about what being an administrative partner is, and some of the core responsibilities of being an administrative partner, and how it's important that we also master all of these core responsibilities before we can say we want to move into strategic HR. And then we talked about the administrative expert being the engine room for HR, being the basic foundation for HR, and some of the challenges that we face in this administrative part of HR. And one of the things I talked about most is just manual processes. Manual processes. All right, and the best practice for administrative excellence. So let's go to HR as a strategic partner. So before I go on, please, do we have any question? I don't just want to continue to talk to myself. I don't know if anyone is following me. Please, if you have any question, you can please let me know. So if you don't ask question or if you don't have contribution, I believe I've done a fantastic job. So please, we can say something maybe in the chat box or anything if you feel like. Okay. All right, thank you. So HR as a strategic partner. This is the part where everybody wants to be seen as a strategic partner. Even when you go to people's bio or LinkedIn, sorry, I'm very familiar, I'm very active on LinkedIn. So when you go to people's bio on LinkedIn, even an HR intern is an HR strategic partner. Everybody is strategic in HR. But do we actually know what it means to be strategic? And before I even move to being a strategic partner, one thing we also need to understand is that if you don't master administrative excellence, you cannot move into strategic. And there are so many reasons for this. Let's go back to the second case study we spoke about. The management leadership refused to involve that HR personnel or that HR manager into strategic decisions. Why? Because he did not master administrative excellence. There were a lot of errors. And in their mind, they were like, if you cannot even do these basic things, so why should we trust you with something bigger? Why should we trust you with something more? So at the beginning, I talked about it being like a straight line. You move from one point to another point. So when you master being an administrative expert, that is when you can start talking about being a strategic partner. And HR as a strategic partner means actively participating in shaping business decisions by aligning people, structure, and capacity and capabilities with the organization's goals, not after decisions are made, but when they are being made. Well, why do you think, especially for the first case study, why do you think leadership did not involve the HR there into strategic decisions? They will make decisions and they'll come to them and say, oh yeah, we've made our decision, recruit, hire, fire, amend policy, do this, do that. So can please anybody, okay, maybe we can take the question at the end of the section, but I want you to think, what do you think is that reason why they were not involved into strategic decisions at all? Yes, and they were administrative experts. They were good at what they do. They are administrative experts. They manage all of the administrative roles and function effectively, but they were never involved in strategic decisions. So we'll come back to that. So in this role, HR moved from merely supporting the business to co-driving business outcomes. So this is very, very important. And without this, organizations, leaders, and people will continue to see HR as a back-end role, as an administrative role only, and will continue to fight for seats at the table. So it is important that when there are business, because at the end of the day, humans, people, they are one of the greatest assets for every organization, and there is no goal they want to achieve. It's always tied to people. Yes, they are expanding into a new market. It's to people because the new market they are going to, they need employees to actually make that happen. Okay, a company wants to achieve operational excellence. They need their people to be able to achieve all of this operational excellence. They want a 50%, 100%, 500% in revenue by the end of Q1. They need people to achieve all of that. So why is HR not called? If HR is actually why HR is actually the custodian of people, but why do we think that HR is still not involved or not invited in all of this conversation? So let's go back here again. Align people's strategy with business objective. This is very, very, very important. So what is the organization objective? What does the organization want to achieve by the end of 2026 or by the end of Q1? How can HR come into this? What can HR do to make them achieve this operational excellence they say they want to achieve? Advise leadership on workforce planning, performance, and culture. I think it's high time that HR leaders we start seeing ourselves as a consultant because we're also a business consultant. We should be able to give advice that will turn business around, that will give our businesses or our organization a 360 turnaround. At the end of the day, just like I said, we are people custodian. People are the greatest asset, and everything is somehow tied to people. Because whatever it is the company wants to achieve, it needs its people to do all of these things, whether they like it or not. Then use data and insight to inform decision and anticipate change. All of the data you've gotten from your administrative part of HR, all of the surveys, all of the recruitment reports, all of the benefit reports, everything, all of the employee post survey. This is where you now use those insights, you analyze those data, and now use those insights to make informed decisions for businesses. Okay. So, difference between traditional HR and strategic HR. Because sometimes we say we are HR professionals, we are strategic HRs, but some of us are still in traditional part of HR. Some of us have not really evolved. We are still doing the things that we used to do some years ago. So one is react to issue after they occur. I think I mentioned this when I was talking about the challenges for administrative experts. We don't react to issues. You have your data, you have your insights. So it can make you predict outcome. You look at your data and say, if you are not careful, this person is going to resign in 3 months. Sometimes people say HR, they have this, someone said it to me before that HR has this prophetic, like HR sometimes act as prophets. But sometimes it's not even like that. You just look at the trends and you can see that this person is likely going to leave the organization, or something is likely going to happen. Yes, your insight or your instinct can tell you, but there are a lot of times where we have data that can help us to make this informed decision. You just look and you can forecast things. And so before they happen, you take steps to prevent them. So that is traditional HR. Traditional HR reacts to issue after they occur, while strategic HR anticipates and prevents them. Yes, you have your data, you have your insights, and even looking at everything around you, you can anticipate that this is going to happen. The union, they are going to go on strike, and this time, if they actually go on this strike, we might not be able to resolve it if we don't do this, and this right now. Then traditional HR focuses on tasks and processes, while strategic HR focuses on outcomes and impact. Yes, a traditional HR, and they just focus on tasks. They are doing the same thing all over and all over and all over again. Every day they know this is what they do. But strategic HR focuses on outcomes. They are not focused on the tasks and all of that they do. Okay, what can we do and what can it lead to? What are the metrics that we can track, and how can it help our businesses, or how can it help the organization grow? Then three, execute management decisions. Strategic HR influences and shapes decision. Just like I said, like HR is consultant of a consultant, not just someone that takes instruction and say yes sir, yes ma'am. Like I said before in the previous case study, the first case study, they they were excellent in their administrative tasks, but they were never involved in strategic decisions, and they just tell them what to do. They come back, management comes back from meeting, from strategic meeting, and they say, yeah, hire this person, fire this person, do this, do that. So they just listen, they just execute whatever management tells them. They cannot even advise and say, no, I think we should not do it like this. This and this and this is what we should do, and this is the reason why we should do all of this, and actually maybe provide data or something to back up their claim. But no, they were not doing that. Therefore, measures activities, head count, and tenders. Yes, traditional HRs, they are police. The attendance police, they are the ones that stays at the gate and say, who did not come to work today? Who came to work today? What time did you leave? This HR has evolved from that. And if you are still doing that, I think you should try and focus on more strategic part of HR and leave who did not come to work. Yes, you should have system in place that deals with that or monitor that, but those are not like core things that you should focus on. And just like I said when I was talking about the administrative part, these are some things that consumes our time. Take our time. We are just so focused on those things that we don't have time to do strategic part of HR that will actually lead to business outcomes. So strategic HR measures value, productivity, retention, and performance. Yes, they measure productivity, they measure retention, They mention performance, not attendance and head counts. Then five, operates in isolation from business strategy. Those ones, they don't understand the business. They don't even know what the business is saying. They just come to work, go and look for people that did not come to work, or look go and look for who is 1 minute late, and they don't even have anything to do with the business. Then strategic HR embed in business planning. They are part of business planning. When business decisions are being made, they are there. Then, lastly, seen as support or compliance function. Just like I said, that is why they keep saying us. Some business leaders today, they still believe that HR, their support functions, and they don't have anything to add to the business. Recently on social media, I saw a video. I wanted to make a comment. I just had to walk past, and I'm like, I'll have to argue with a whole lot of people under this comment. There was a video I saw where someone was saying that he's glad that their company does not have an HR and they are doing very, very well. And they are doing the HR is waste of money and waste of revenue. This video had about a like 1,000 comments. Every one of them was saying, yes, HRs are waste of money. HR department is a waste of money and waste of resources when the company does not actually need HR. Well, that is a conversation for another day. Let's move on to the next slide. Yes, key strategic responsibility for for the strategic partner. Strategic HR focuses on enabling business success. Yes, those are like their key responsibility through workforce planning, aligned with business growth and challenges. What skills, what are the level of employees that the company is going to need in the next 3 to 5 years? Yeah, the company is expanding, the company is growing. What are the skill sets that the company is going to need in years to come? What should they expect? This is what strategic HRs are busy with. This is what they should be thinking. Then talent strategy, attraction, retention, and succession planning. So the good talents that we have, yes, somebody with the administrative tax has done the recruitment. So, but this good talent that we have, this very excellent workforce that we have, how do we retain them? How do we make sure that they stay, especially with the Jackpot era that happened recently? And there's actually another talent migration going on right now because people are relocating out of the system because of freelance and remote role. A lot of people are leaving the traditional 9 to 5, and because of that, there are talent scarcity. Yes, we say there are no jobs outside, but there are actually talent scarcity. So the talents that you have, how do you retain them? How do you even attract them? How do you brand your company in such a way that you don't have issues when you're recruiting, that your recruitment is easy because you can attract talent. Then succession planning, when you are there are some roles that maybe they are difficult to fill, or there are roles that that they're operational critical and they can affect the business if anybody leaves or anything happens. So how do you start your succession plan? Those are the key responsibility for a strategic partner. Then performance management tied to business outcomes. Yes, you're not just doing a performance management system because it's a task that needs to be done. You are tailoring it to what the business actually needs. A business that is new in Nigeria, for example, that is just growing, that needs to expand into the market, the kind of performance management that you set for that kind of business is not the same you will set for a business that is big already, that has expanded, and you just want the employees to be more effective. They are different. So these are strategic responsibility. Then culture and value integration into daily operations, leadership development and capacity building. The workforce you have, how are you developing them? And, people that are growing, people that are moving up the rank to management level, do they have what it takes to be in that management level? Are they well equipped? Or do you want to start recruiting fresh people from the beginning? Because there are times where you have to look at what the business really needs at that point. Do you think the business should just go ahead and hire senior workers or senior employees, or do you have people in the organization already that can fill that position that you just have to train? to take up those positions. Then HR using data and insight to inform decision. This is very, 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 very important. You have your data. How do you use them to inform decisions? There are times when, as HR professionals, we are trying to convince management to do some things. We are trying to make management do some things, and they are saying no. I always say that the best way you can do all of these things is using your data. Just continue to gather your data and show them this is what in the last 6 months we've lost social number of employees in a particular department. And they'll be like, really? Yes. This is what we've lost in this particular department. In the last 6 months, this and this has happened in this department. So with all of that, it will enable us to make a lot of informed decisions that will favor the organization. Then skills that you need to be a strategic partner, skills you need. So there are different skills that you need. I always say something that as an HR professional, one of the things you need to know is understand the business. It is non-negotiable. You have to understand the business. So HR is not HR. For us that have taken CIPM, or if you are doing your masters or MBA in HR, you see that there is a way they touch every aspect. They are not just focused on human resources alone. If you are even doing any certifications, like they touch the financial aspects, they touch the business operational aspects and everything. Because as an HR, you have to be grounded in all of this. So it's important that you understand the business. So to function as a strategic partner, HR professional needs one, business acumen, understanding how the organization makes money and its strategic priorities. Like that is one of the things you need to know. Like that is the first thing you need to know. And sometimes when recruiters or when we HR professionals, when we are recruiting for a particular industry, this is the reason why they want people that have experience in that industry. It's easy for that person because that person is already in that industry. It makes it easier, right? Now imagine you as an HR professional, you don't even understand the profit and loss statement of a business, how they make money. Use. All right, so we're talking about skills HR needs to operate strategically. I've talked about the business acumen, then now we are talking about data literacy. So as an HR, you need to understand what metrics that needs to be tracked. What are the metrics that you need to look out for? What are the metrics that are currently important for the business that will guide you? And you can use the insights or the things gotten from those metrics to make informed decisions that will benefit the organization. Then consulting and advisory skill. Like I said, I think I also mentioned earlier that as an HR, we need to move to that level where we are seen as a business consultant, where you influence leaders, you advise them, and you actually influence them to do what you're asking them to be able to influence your leaders or your management to do the right thing. And that's also because they trust you enough and they believe in your judgment, right? Then change management capability, support positional transformation and culture. So function strategically also need you also need this skill, change management. Your organization is currently involved in in a joint venture, or your organization is expanding or new place. So you need to be able to influence this change management and capacity. You need in all of the change that is going on. The communication and stakeholders engagement. This is very, very important. Engaging leaders, employees, and management effectively. You need to engage all of them from top management, even the board, to employees. Stakeholders engagement, how to engage. So communication and stakeholder management, how to engage leaders, stakeholders, union leaders, and everybody effectively. So as a strategic partner, you need to know how to come down to everybody's level. When you are communicating or engaging members, the way you communicate them or engage them, it's not the same way you manage normal employees or union leaders. Yeah. Sometimes that is why some people call HR chameleons. It's not like that. They say some people call HR shapeshifter, because now you are having a frank conversation with someone, and the next minute you have to be very empathic to another person that maybe just walks into your office or that is presently you are presently on the call with. So you must be able to communicate and engage stakeholders at different level at different time. Then critical is very, very for strategic business leader. You are paid, you are not paid, or you are not being asked that administrative tasks to do employment. You are the company is presently through some challenges, or they are presently in some phases where customers are complaining their new product is leading to a lot of backlash. So as a professional, how I was talking about critical thinking and problem solving, how as an HR, you should be able to solve problems for the organization. Yes, there are different problems the organization is facing. You should be able to think strategically and look for solutions to those problems. So understanding the business, I mentioned this earlier, it is a very critical and important skill. As an HR professional, one of the things you need to understand is you need to understand the business. It is not negotiable. If you move from an FMCG to construction, or maybe from construction to logistics or to hospitality, one of the key things you need to do is to maybe during your first 30 days in office, you have to make sure that you understand everything that has to do with the business. So to operate strategically, HR must understand the organization, business model, and how value is created. This is very, very important. You need to understand your company's products. Even if it's services they are rendering, what are the company's services? What differentiates them from other services, like for other service provider or from other competitors? You need to understand this. The cost structure, especially people related costs. This is even non-negotiable. You need to understand your manpower. What is the cost? What are the costs they are incurring? If the company decides to do salary increments, or if the company decides to bring in new talent into the company, how does it affect costs? Do you think the organization can sustain it? Are you just going to continue to recruit or bring in talent, and then at the end of 3 months, you're saying, okay, let's do retrenchment, let's lay all of them off? So this is very important that you understand the business, you understand the cost, and also seasons. There are businesses or companies that are in seasons. You know that in so seasons there is a rise and you need more employees, but in another season, maybe from January to February, for example, you are going to need a whole lot of employees. Then from March to maybe August or so, you're not going to need employees. So if you don't understand the cost structure or how the business operates, you just go and employ, and after 3 or 4 months, you are already laying people off. So instead, you can come up with a strategy where the company can have talent for that period of time where they need where they need talents to do some things, and you so that they will not the cost will be minimal, and the cost of retrenchment and layoff will also be minimal. Then key revenue drivers and profit levelers. This is also important. You need to know what are the key, where the money comes from, how what the profits that the company is making or the organization is making. This will also help you to even when you're suggesting some employee experience program or some employees engagement program, you need to know the level that the company is. If you don't understand, you just go and maybe let's say the company is experiencing some crisis at that moment, and you decided to suggest one very exorbitant that will cost the company a whole lot. Management will look at you as if you don't know what you are doing, because you know that this moment they are or this point they are is very critical to them, right? Then industrial trend and competitive pressure. You need to understand your industry, the industry your company or your organization operates from. What is common with this industry? What are the trends in this industry? What is going on right now in this industry? Does the company needs to upgrade when it comes to technology or AI? And what are the competitive pressure around the business? So, in a nutshell, it is very, 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 very important. It's non-negotiable for you to operate strategically as an HR. One of the core things you need to do is understand the business. If you need to sit down with some stakeholders and ask questions or do your research on how your business makes profit and all of that, you need to be able to do that. As an HR, you need to be able to get data, even if people decide not to give you data. That is one thing that is one skill also you need to learn. So because, for example, let's say you resume in an organization in a new industry and you're trying to understand that maybe you need some data from finance and they're refusing to give you. You need to be able to know how to influence or how to get those information, because they say ignorance is not an excuse. It's not an excuse that you don't even understand the business, because at times there will be problem or challenges and you will not even know how to come in, because that's not how you want to operate strategically if you don't understand the company or the business or in the industry your company is in and out. Right. So the last point is operational challenges. You must understand operational challenges and impacting performance. Just like I said, you need to understand everything, the challenges, the profit, everything, revenue drivers, profit and loss, everything that has to do with the business for you to be able to operate strategically. That is the number one and core thing you need to be able to do seamlessly. So now here's the thing, how HR can transition from administrative to strategic. So at the beginning, I mentioned that being a strategic expert is not the opposite of being an administrative expert, sorry, is not the opposite of being a strategic partner. It's like a transition. It goes on and on. You move from being a strategic expert to being an administrative partner. It's not word and opposite. So how do you now transition from being administrative to being strategic? So number one is fix administrative gaps. If there are any loophole or anything you're not doing well when it comes to administrative tasks, you have to look for a way to fix it. Payroll errors, fix it. If there are ways or technologies you think you can suggest to management, and even if there are no technologies, I am telling you with Microsoft 360 or even Google, you can still do some things that will make your job easier. that will also reduce the time you spend on some tasks. So build efficient system, automate and standardize processes where possible. So if your organization can introduce technology, or if you can get technology, that is the best thing. You automate a whole lot of processes, then you stop spending too much time on these administrative tasks. And like I said, if there is no technology, you can still use some everyday tool to automate some of your processes, from Notion to Microsoft to Google. You can still use some of their packages to automate your system. Then free of time intentionally. Just like I said, sometimes we just spend so much time on administrative tasks that we don't even have the time to think strategically. So you have to free up, you have to be intentional about freeing up time for you to be able to do all of these things. Reduce firefighting and manual work to create space for strategy. You just need to look for time. You need to be intentional. Even if you presently work in an organization where the workload is too much and there are no technology, you have to be intentional about doing this. So that is the only way you can transition. Then learn business fundamentals. We already spoke about it. Understand the business. That is the way for you to transition. You have to understand your business, the industry you are, the organization you are in and out, from revenue to cost to operations to industry realities. You need to understand all of this. Then use data to guide decisions. You need to be data smart. You need to be able to use data. You need to be able to use analytics. You need to be able to use your metrics to make informed decisions, to make opinions, and also to look at trends. You need to be able to do all of this using data. HR analytics is not it's compulsory. It's not optional. Then engage leadership intentionally. You need to engage leadership intentionally. Join planning conversation. So, like I said, if you look at our first case study talked about the HR department, that they were administrative experts, but they were never involved in strategy. So, one thing they should have done is to, yes, they were not involved, but they should volunteer. They should make time to attend this meeting. The head of HR should make time to go into this meeting and share insights, share data, like, share reports that will, oh, maybe we're not seeing it from that angle. But once these HR leaders start doing all of this, then they start taking them serious. And because of this, they will continue to invite them into strategic decisions. So it's important that you don't just sit in the corner of your office and do your administrative tasks and all of that and move on and go home. You need to be able to engage leaders, you need to be able to engage management and planning conversation and add value consistently. So once they see that you give an advice and it change things, then they'll continue to invite you into strategic decisions or strategic planning, or you gave an insight, or you gave them a metrics or a report that actually showed where the company is lacking, and they can see, they will with time they will start involving you in different strategic conversations and planning. So I'd like to now go back to our debate. So now, please, I would like us to make this part very interactive. I want us to speak our mind from what I've said, and if you also have any opinion you want to share about this, so please let's leadership strategy. So what do we can business. So what do you think? You think HR network? Okay, do you think HR should be blamed for business outcomes if leaders never invite them into strategy? So what do we think? Or we can drop a comment. If I'm not saying anything, I believe that I've done woefully today. I'm not, yes, I know I've been in and out because of the network, but even at that, I'd like us to talk about this. So what do you think? Do you think leaders, HR should be blamed for business outcomes if leadership never invites them into strategy? Mr. Folani, I mean, Mr. Sunday, I can see your video. What do you think? Nobody is saying anything. That means I've done a woeful job today.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening, everyone.
Good
I don't know if I'm audible.
Good evening. Yes, you are.
Okay. Good evening. Thank you, Blessing, and
Good
thank you,
evening.
Doctor, as well. I think I like to be controversial here. So, say that at one certain level, HR would have to be blamed for not being invited in meetings, and I'll say it from the context of well, we live in a system where, I mean, nothing is given to us, right? It's something that we have to fight for at every level. Um, Again, 80% of the industries we have are not clearly full of standards, procedures, processes. It means that every HR must have to fight for their space on the table. Fight, I mean, just like you said, providing insights, data, recommendations become relevant in the room than just being there, right? When leaders perceive such. Okay, so I also worked in a place many years back. I just recalled as we were discussing this. One of the so we were two HR managers at that point. Somehow, because of the culture there, I find myself being hired while there's also another HR manager with the intent that they were going to ask the other HR manager to leave. Now it became very toxic because, I mean, for the other HR manager, he sees me like a competitor. All the entire documents, everything, he kept it away from me for months. So I became almost like redundant. And I keep asking myself, what can I do to break the circle? So again, it's also a logistic company. So even though it was not within my purview, we had other HR officers. So I asked for one thing. I requested that I want to see all of the licenses of the drivers. There were no datas. He kept everything away from me. He locked the lockers. He kept everything high. I literally come to work like I don't come to work. So it means that I wasn't doing anything. So I started with the driver's license, designed a report around it, provided insights. From nowhere, he saw that I started sending mails, copying the business leaders, the data around and implications why some of them don't have, if they don't have driver license and they keep driving, the risk involved in it. And immediately we developed the policy, shared it with the business leaders, and the game changed. After that first incident, the second incident happened again. There were no data around. There were no data around renewals of the licenses of most of the trucks vehicles. I also have to come up with data around that, and I made it a thing of very concern. Within the next 3 months, I was sharing documents that were expired, that need renewals, and quite a lot of that immediately, just out of the blues. The business leaders came back into the country and they said they wanted to see me, wanted to have conversations with me. He apologized why there were mix-ups, and not less than 48 hours, he terminated the employment of the other guy. For the business leader, they want to see an HR that is not just purely administrative, but can see things from the lens of where they are coming from, not just talking, but provide insights and reports. So I'd say that from my particular experience, if I sit on that fence, I probably would have got fired, right? But because I had to from nowhere, create data. And funny enough, this guy keep asking me, where am I getting this information from? But literally within the room there, I was getting those insights, getting reports. At some point, he wanted me to start sharing the report. I said, I'm not going to do that. You are an HR manager. I'm an HR manager. You don't have, or you kept away all the documents from me, but I'm willing to go extra mile. That little extra mile puts me on that table. So I think if all of us will take responsibilities and maybe not just a bit, put it on the business leaders. They are occupied with quite a lot of things. Again, this is a Nigerian system. It's not a system where a lot of companies has good structures. It's something that we all have to fight for. I mean, coming from knowing that this is a Nigerian system. Well, this is not to encourage a Nigerian system, but we all know this is how we found ourselves. And we have to fight for it, whether we like it or not. The business leader is operation minded, is also a sales minded person. They are never an HR person. They are going to literally at every single moment be concerned with either operations, business development, or finance. If you are not in that department, I keep saying you have to fight for your seat on the table. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Mr. Derek, for that, for what you just shared. Like, that's really sums everything up. Thank you so much for that. So, as an HR, you don't have to wait to be invited to the table. Nobody is going to invite you. Sometimes they will not invite you. You have to find your way there. You have to make sure that you get a seat at the table. Even if they don't invite you, carry your chair and go and sit in their midst. Thank you so much for that, Mr. Derek. So I have some questions here. Anthony said, if HR has competently handle the admin part and made effort to involve management strategically to no avail, they shouldn't be blamed for big companies' outcome. Okay, that's so. What Mr. Anthony is saying is that if HR has made efforts and things are very difficult, and because of that, they should not be blamed. Okay. Then Sunday said, I don't think an HR person should be blamed. Well, I still believe that as an HR person, even when we don't get invited, we should do our best. We should try to get a seat there. It's not at all cost, but we should also we should also think strategically, right? And look for how to get a seat there. Yeah. Then the second question says that should HR be trusted with strategic decisions, even if core administrative tasks weak? I will say no. But if you have a contrary opinion, please you can drop it in the comments. Should HR be trusted with strategic decision, even if core administrative tasks are weak? This is a no, because if you are excellent in these administrative tasks, that is what will give you leverage with management. Just like our first case study, was it first or second case study? So because there were lot of payroll errors and some mismatch, so because of that, management is not even trusting them. A business leader is looking like, what are you doing here? Go and fix the basic thing that you need to fix. You cannot even be here when these and these and these are happening, right? So that is why for this, I will say no. I hope we all agree with this. Then 3 is which comes first for HR? Is it administrative excellence or strategic excellence? I would like us to answer this together. So, which comes first? Is it administrative excellence or strategic influence for HR? Oh my God.
Administrative excellence.
So, which comes first? Yes, administrative excellence. Thank you. So, for HR, it's just administrative excellence is the pathway to strategic influence. So that is very, very important. So you cannot say you are strategic when you don't master basic administrative functions, HR administrative functions, or administrative tasks. So with that, we've come to the end of this webinar. Please, I would like to take questions now. If you have any question, if you have any contribution, please, I would like to hear from you in the comments. And I also like to know what is one of the things that's taking away from this webinar. What is one thing you're taking away from this section? So you've really done a good job. I'm sure we should have like some key takeaways from this section right now. What are the key for you now that you're leaving this section to university? what is one thing that you know like taking away from you can please put them in chat box so that we round up this section. What is one key takeaway from you? If you can't say anything, I really have done a very bad job. So what is one takeaway, key takeaway from this section? HR as an administrative expert and a strategic expert. So what is one key takeaway that we can say that you are taking away from this section? Of course, at this point, every one of us should have one or two key takeaways from this section. Everybody's typing. Okay, let me mention names. Blessing, my namesake, is away from this section. Okay. So I believe we are all saying that we